Hi everyone, it's me, Tim, and today I want to talk about emergent gameplay. Jeffrey Sherman 609 asks, recently I've become entranced with emergent gameplay. After a bit of thinking on it, I feel like a fair amount of your games have offered it, and I'm curious if it is considered when making a game, and if it is, how much, and is it style dependent, CRPG, ARPG, etc. I like this question. I'm actually surprised I haven't really talked about it. I certainly haven't made it the topic of a video. But, I'll just start off by saying I love emergent gameplay, and that's obviously why it exists in all of my games. It's something I saw happen on tabletop, and it happens just so organically there that it was something I wanted to make happen in my computer games. Now, we should probably define it. So, emergent gameplay is when there are things a player can do that arise from the mechanics, but weren't necessarily part of those mechanics or were planned for by the designers, or at least explicitly planned for. Now, when I say that I like emergent gameplay and it was in a lot of my games, I'm not speaking for everybody on those teams. There were a lot of people who did not like emergent gameplay. Emergent gameplay causes a lot of unpredictability for the designers and for narrative designers who have to write story and dialogue, and for system mechanics designers who are trying to plan for things that happen so they can set flags and have reaction to it in the game. Letting the player mix up mechanics and do things that weren't planned for makes all of their jobs much more difficult. Now, I think it's a good kind of difficulty. It's kind of a challenging kind of difficulty that if you do the reactivity based on one of these mechanics, even though you didn't know what the mechanic was, you put enough reactivity in that you catch it, people love it. Now, I'm not going to talk about any other genre than RPGs, computer RPGs, because I haven't made any of those other games. But I've seen it happen, and I love it in those games too. So let me walk through kind of how I think it happens and how it happened for me and how we handled it. And also some places where I wish they had handled it in other games. So let's talk about Fallout. In Fallout, we had emergent gameplay. Some we expected to happen and others we didn't. For example, in Fallout, once we put explosives in, and explosives could damage anything in their radius that had health, that's when we did things like give doors or locks on doors hit points. Because we knew that, A, that meant they could be attacked, and anything with an AoE would do damage to them. And we knew that people would use explosives to get through doors. The nice thing about it was once we did that at the systemic level in code, we didn't have to special case it. Any door that you could break down, you could use an explosive to get through. And that was just a good thing. The one thing I've mentioned a lot, which was emergent gameplay that we did not expect, was pickpocketing. In pickpocketing, and I was the one who implemented it, I had to get it done quickly, and I had already done bartering. So that UI already existed, and I thought, I'll be clever, and I'll use the same UI and just put a flag in saying, hey, you're pickpocketing, so there is no, when you say you're done, it doesn't go and check your barter skill to see if the guy accepts it and how much money or whatever, what his reaction is to it. Instead, if you're pickpocketing, it just takes it and it rolls to see against your skill to see if the person notices. All that was exactly what we thought was going to happen. What someone in QA discovered was because it was bartering, I could put things to go into them. I could not just take things, I could put things back. And that's how they figured out that they could put items inside an NPC's inventory. Of course, they started doing it with grenades and explosives and then moving away and watching that NPC blow up. When they discovered that, we decided to leave it in. And in fact, I think we ended up using it as a means in later quests to do implanting incriminating evidence, but it was not intended. So that's an example of emergent gameplay that we discovered before it shipped, and we loved it, and then we started making use of it. But then other things, of course, people discovered all kinds of things, especially when I watched speedrunners of Fallout and realized we didn't keep track of whether you ever got a water chip. So people can speedrun Fallout by just ignoring the whole water chip quest line and just killing the mutant army and then killing the master, and boom, game over. Now, like I said, we knew we'd have emergent gameplay because we were playing a lot of tabletop RPGs, and we watched emergent gameplay happen. We watched people do things with their characters we didn't expect. You know, try to talk to the bad guy in the dungeon and have such a good skill and make such good rolls that they talk their way out of an encounter. That was cool stuff. And while it's hard pressed to call it emergent for tabletop, it was unusual that players acted like that. And when we were talk about making Fallout, and we had this discussion in detail before we even did one line of design for Arcanum, we said, look, we've got to provide a rich enough set of mechanics, and they have to be low-level mechanics that basically just define the player does this, this happens, and if you have enough of those low-level ones that interact with each other, emergent gameplay will just happen. It'll just happen all by itself, and you should go for it. So the way you do that is you make the code very general. For example, if you have a lock in a game, you can say this lock is actually part of, when you make an object that's lockable, like a container or a door, you have to do two things for the lock. You have to say, what's its key ID, and how hard is it to pick? And now you can lock pick that, the skill works, and it knows what penalties or bonuses to apply to the skill. And if you ever find a key with a matching key ID, it sets that lock to open as well. And then you can go take that key ID and put it anywhere you want. You can put it in a guard's pocket so it can be pickpocketed. You can put it in another container so it can be stolen from there. But if the object it's attached to has hit points, and those hit points ever hit 0, we mark that object as now open. And we're done. And now, any lock in the game that's on something with hit points can be blown open or beaten open or whatever you want to do. Now, the flip side of that would be, because people go, well, that sounds, how would you ever not do that systemically? Well, imagine if you had a particular lock that was scripted so that if a nearby screwdriver was applied to the lock, it would say, oh, you've popped the lock. That's a scripted event. The only thing that it works on is that lock, and the only thing it works with is that screwdriver. I hate those because it teaches the player something that's not general, something they can't use anywhere else, and it makes them start to go, okay, I see a lock, let's look around to see if there's something particularly unique about this lock, which isn't what I wanted. I wanted you to have like, hey, you have a whole bunch of different tools in your tool chest of actions. One of them will probably open this lock. The other thing I hate is when a game states a general rule and then doesn't follow through. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but a very popular RPG in the 90s did this. I was asked to go find an NPC. When you find them, they're dead. They were killed recently. And the intention was you pick up the body and take it back and go, oh, sorry, here they are. They're dead. But I was playing a cleric, and even though I wasn't high enough level to raise dead, I had a raise dead scroll. And that scroll said it worked for anyone who'd been dead up to 9 days. And I knew this person couldn't have been dead for more than 3. I knew it. They were alive and home 3 days before. But I couldn't raise them from the dead. I'd cast the scroll, click on the dead body, and it would say invalid target. I was angry because A, it wasted the scroll. I had to reload and I lost about 20 minutes of gameplay. But I remember finding myself as a game designer going, why did they give me that scroll? Someone put it in the game. And then why did they make this quest that doesn't even follow the rule of that scroll? I thought what was going to happen is I was going to raise this person. I was going to go back and you know, the person who sent me on the quest was like, oh my goodness, you found him. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. Nope. There was only one way to solve it, and that was to bring back the dead body and go, they're dead now. Did not like that. Perfect example of a place where an emergent behavior could have happened, and they flubbed it by just not having a generic response. And that's how you cover emergent gameplay that you don't necessarily specifically plan for. What you should do is put in all the code so you handle a lot of emergent gameplay. Just, the explosives, blow off that lock, now they can get in. Try to react to as much of the other emergent gameplay as you can. For example, if you just added a generic response to the NPC that sent you out in the quest, that if you come back with that character that you were sent to find alive, the quest giver goes, "Oh my goodness, you rescued him. I don't know how you did it, but I am indebted to you. Here, have a reward." That's all you have to say. Because that's all you know. As the designer, you're like, I don't know how this would ever happen, but just in case it does, let's put in a line for it. We did that in several places in Arcanum, where we weren't 100% sure how the player would pull something off, but we put in a line to test for it anyway. Are they back with this person? Or did they come back and now this person's dead somehow? We don't know how it happened. We weren't there. We don't have a specific response going, "I can't believe you let him stand within that fireball." We just go, "Oh, he died. I can't believe you let that happen. I don't like you anymore." The other reason you shouldn't beat yourself up for not planning on every possible way that a player will do something is because you literally can't. If you have a rich enough rule set, you can't plan for everything the players are going to do, because players are clever little devils, and they will think of things and do things that you would not have thought of if you had spent 10 years planning this game. Somebody will figure something out. You see it when you look up, you get stuck in a game and you look up how people did, and you find the most clever solutions of people saying, "Oh, bring this character and have him go invisible," or break down this door and enter through the back, or disarm this trap, or cast sleep. And they do all these things that are perfectly possible within the game, but disable some kind of reaction that you can tell the game designers were planning on. So, what's my wrap up of all this? Try to do as much code, low level and generic, as you can. Try to react to everything you can. If it's specific, write a specific line. Then write some more general reactions that people have, that they don't know how you did it, because you, the game designer, can't imagine how they do that thing, but you throw in a reaction to it anyway. And then relax. Players are going to be clever. Players are going to find ways of doing things that you didn't plan on. Rather than be mad about it and argue about it and fight against it, relax. Let them do it. Let players be smart. It's fun. It's fun to read about how people met the challenge in your game and solved it. So anyway, bottom line, Tim likes emergent gameplay. And thank you for the question, Jeffrey Sherman.